friends, how are you doing? In today's video, I'll be showing you how you can create your own art mount. Let's get into it. When selecting an art mount, it's always best for the most professional result to simply buy one. This is because some of these art mounts, they have slanted edges which is almost impossible to recreate by hand. If you are in a rush, you haven't found the right size, or for other reasons, and you'd like to make your own art mount, here this video will show you how I did it. Here are the materials that we're gonna need. You're gonna need whether an existing art mount that is too small for your artwork. Alternatively, get yourself some cardstock paper that's at least 200 GSM or thicker. Then you will also need a pencil, a ruler, and an X-Acto knife or something like an X-Acto knife to cut. The next step is going to be to measure your artwork against the measurements of the cardboard or the art mount that you have. The most important piece is first grab the cardboard or the art mount and turn it back upside down so that we will be tracing on the back of it, not the front. Next, we're going to capture 4 measurements. We're going to measure the length of the mount, the length of the artwork, the height of the mount, and the height of the artwork, just like I've shown in the graphics. With these values, we can now calculate the exact amount that we need to come in from the right, the left, the top, and the bottom. The formulas I've displayed on the screen, which are: you take the length of the mount, deduct the length of the artwork, and divide that value by 2. And you repeat that with the height. So you take the height of the mount, deduct the height of the artwork, and then divide that result by 2. Now that you have the length gap, you're going to mark from the left 1 dot of that value. Let's say it's 3 centimeters. So you go from the left 3 centimeters in and repeat that on the right hand side. You do that one more time at the top of the artwork. That's just so that we're able to pull the line. Now that we've added the 4 points from the length gap, we're going to change the orientation of the mount. It doesn't matter if it's the correct orientation of your artwork or not, but this is just so that we can add now the height gap that we have calculated. Now in this new orientation, we're going to go again to the left, to essentially the border of the mount, and come in whatever the height gap is. We do the same thing on the right hand side. We come from the right, the amount of the height gap. And one more time, we have to do it now on the top side. If you have a corner ruler, this step might be a bit simpler since you can measure both the height gap and the length gap at the same time. What we're trying to do here with both those measurements is to find a cross. So essentially, wherever the height gap and the length gap meet in each of those corners, that's your end point. That's where the artwork finishes. There's of course other ways that you could have traced, for example, your artwork directly, but this method ensures that you're completely centered. Once you have found all the corners, now you can trace the lines between them. The next thing that we have to do is to add a little buffer. If you were to cut the lines that you have just identified, you would have cut essentially the exact same size of your artwork, which means it would fall off. So what we need to create is a little buffer. I have added, I think it was about 0.5 centimeter or 1 centimeter. It's a bit as well preference depending on how much of your artwork you want to show or hide. But just make sure that there's enough room so that the artwork can properly be behind and stay behind the mount. Then you add that extra bit towards the inside of the mount and trace it all around. So you should end up with essentially 2 squares that are just offset by whatever your buffer size is. I ended up erasing the bigger border just to make sure that I didn't get confused, but that's an optional step as if you don't get confused, of course. The next step is to cut it out. I think that some of my leather craft is coming in handy for this step. Here are my tips. First, try to get a ruler that is made out of metal. Sometimes when we're working with something as sharp as an X-Acto knife or like a cutter, the one I'm using, you can sometimes dig into your plastic ruler. So that would be the first important thing. The second thing is make sure that your knife is really sharp. The sharper it is, the less pressure you have to put, and therefore there's less risk of a mistake or even worse, an injury. So be really, really careful not to cut your thumb, not to cut your fingers in any kind of way. And then the last thing, and this is so that your finished product is just nicer, a little bit more neat. When you're when you're doing the cut, you want you want to start at the corner but not finish all the way into the opposite corner. So essentially you're gonna go 90% of the way to almost the end. The reason for this is it's almost impossible to get the knife to cut into the corner the way you want. Usually you'd go a bit over the length that you want. So to avoid that, you will just go 90% and then you turn around your mount and cut from the opposite corner into the other direction. So with that, you should have a much cleaner result. If the cutout is not coming in easily, go another time over the same spot instead of pulling at it. Now we're almost there and it's just the finishing touches. What do I mean by that? Just double check that you've cut it correctly, that there's maybe not like loose pieces of paper somewhere around there. And also you can erase the pencil that you had. It's not going to be visible, but if you just want to be more precise and more neat with your work, because this is the pencil that is also going to come against your artwork, so you might not want it to smear, especially if it's going to be there for a long time. It might cross over to your artwork and damage it. So yeah, it's more of a little inspection that you do now here at the end, making sure that everything is working as intended. And don't forget to turn it upside down so that you have the right side facing up. And ta-da! This is the finished product. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was useful and clear. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!